Welcome to Software Without Borders, where we delve into the limitless potential of software and how it's transforming businesses globally. I'm your co-host, Jared Striner, and with me today is my co-host, the CEO of Accelerance, Andy Hilliard. Today we dive into an increasingly relevant topic in our interconnected world. How can companies align multinational, multicultural teams to achieve successful business outcomes? Our guest today is Hema Ramaswamy, a seasoned technology leader who has scaled product and engineering teams and built mission-critical products that have powered Fortune 100 companies. Hema's impressive track record in startups and industry giants has earned her accolades, including the Tech Trailblazers Award and the MLK Leadership Award for being a champion of diversity and inclusion. Hema is the current founder and CEO of Sunlit Live, an app looking to streamline the senior care journeys for 38 million family caregivers, saving them time and money and enhancing the quality of life for all involved. Join us today as we unpack her insights on transforming cultural differences into business advantages and fostering a one-team mindset across diverse teams. Thank you for joining us today, Hema.
Thank you for having me on the show.
So your journey began as a software engineer over 20 years ago. Can you share a pivotal moment early in your career that shaped your approach to technology leadership?
Yes, it's funny that the pivotal time was not about technology itself, but it was a life event. And I'll tell you a story. You know, when you graduate from school and you get into the workforce as an entry-level engineer, you know, you're excited and you do exactly what you're told to do and you stay in your lane and you do the work, right? And my story is no different. I was doing the same thing, and only to realize that, you know, I would take the specification, I would do the diligence, work hard, produce great quality work, and it would be a very small piece of a big puzzle, right? And then when time comes to integrate it into the larger piece, that's when you realize that there are so many discrepancies and missed information and things like that. And in the last minute, you have to stay, late at work, work weekends and make all that integrations happen and things like that. And I didn't mind doing those things. But then life happened. I had children and then, staying after hours and working weekends at a moment's notice was not even an option. So I really had to be very proactive. And what I did was when work was given to me, I started asking a lot of questions. Who's going to use this? Why do you need this? Who's the user? How is this going to integrate? And, how is my work, impacting other components and things like that? So what came out of that is my questions not only made things better for me and gave clarity, but it also enabled other people to think about, what affects, the way I implement things. So it was like a two-way conversation rather than me asking them a lot of questions. So that was a very pivotal moment, even though it was a necessity for me to do as much as I can and not work, when my kids need me. But what I also realized was tactical leadership is not about coding and implementing, but the ability to connect the dots for the various teams, technical, non-technical, user, and explaining how their work integrates in the larger solution for a user. And later on, in my leadership journey, when people ask, how can I create impact? And I always told them the story. It's the ability for you to connect the dots. And that's how you create impact, not staying in your own lane and doing, code. So I would say that was a very pivotal moment.
So Hema, it's interesting to hear your evolution, as we all do, from someone who is taught a certain role and has a limited experience, and through experience there's maturity and then life events happen, like your family and your children happen. And at the same time, the industries are always evolving around you. So I like to hear so there's a lot of things, some things you control and some things you don't control. But what you can control is how you continue to align yourself and your maturity and your experience with the evolving landscape around you. And as we know, technology is just always evolving in sometimes predictable and sometimes unpredictable ways. So can you describe sort of how you matured and evolved and stayed aligned with the evolution of the industry?
That's a very loaded question. And if I were to pick one thing, I would say that's your willingness and ability to learn. Learn from experiences, learning from watching other people, learning new technology, and somewhere in there kind of shed that inhibition of fear of failure. So I would say that, wanting to do new things, wanting to look for ways to do things better, faster, efficient, that innate quality of curiosity and wanting to do better and learn is how I personally stayed with the evolution of technology.
What about also learning about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, determining what weaknesses you want to improve on or what strengths you want to double down on? You got to choose where you dedicate and invest your time and your energy. And then also choosing a path within the industry, like, not only your role, but also what you want to pursue. It could be a vertical expertise or it could be a type of application. So how did you make all those choices?
Great questions, because people usually ask me, hey, how do I stay ahead in the technology side? But you're asking a very profound question about personal development. And that motivation comes from within. And that motivation also comes with, I would say, professional events, right? Either a promotion that you were overlooked for, or, other things. So in my case, I think, earlier in my career and the younger days of my life, family was, a lot, key for me. And I did a lot of things unknowingly, mostly to protect my time with my family. And one of the things that I did was, I was always dreading to, get that one call in the middle of the night, or, when I'm away from my computer, hey, something's broken that you built, come fix it. So I started documenting everything. I would document my code. I would document specification. I know certain people who can stay longer, or this is where the global team comes in. There was a team in India, so I would write everything for them in case, XYZ happened. So all of this taught me one thing, which was I was really good at sharing information. I was not insecure about who I am. I was not insecure about my job. That learning happened through this, and the second thing that came out of this was people started relying on me for information in terms of how does the system work? How does this thing work? So writing down and teaching other people about your work and how to improve and how to, enhance that was a force multiplier.
Sure. The feedback from people you're interacting with that are relying on you or depending on you because you give off a certain amount of energy in a certain space, and you're learning about yourself and you're learning about actually what you really enjoy doing and what gives you energy, and you're also getting feedback from audience.
Yes, and that was a force multiplier, right? Something unexpected happened from this one trait of mine, which was when new projects came, I was the one seen as somebody who could do it because I had already transitioned the work, or somebody else knew how to do my work. So I got more and more new projects to do, and they were all outside of my area of expertise. And that is also a situation that helped me learn who I am. I can dive in and become a specialist for some amount of time, but what makes me happy is being a generalist. I need to be doing different things. I need to know how to put things together. Just being an engineer at heart and profession. So opportunities like this happened, for a few years. And pretty soon, I was one of the very, very few people who knew the system in and out and how each system interacts. So that set me up to perform the role of an architect for an entire product, right? So my advice is that, yes, you want to protect your work to some extent, but letting go of that just creates a lot more opportunities for you to learn new things, experience new people, interacting with new teams. And, those are all critical for your success.
Hema, that reminds me of a story earlier in my career where I fell into the love of documentation. I had taken my children to Disney, and then I got a call on my cell phone, and it was the office, and they're like, "Hey, we really need to make an update." And I'm like, "I'm on vacation. Can this wait?" And they're like, "No, they really, really need this today." And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I have no documentation to walk somebody through it." So I had to take a pause on my vacation and let the kids and my wife go. And I sat at a table and walked somebody through the procedure to make the update while I was in the middle of Disney World. And as soon as I got back to the office, I started writing documentation and made a book. And it was one of those things where it's like, in case of emergency type book, like, how do you do all of these things? Because I was the only person that handled that. And then we had a meeting. I said, "Okay, guys, I need to be able to take vacation without receiving phone calls. So let's figure out a backup system. And here's this book that show." And I did everything by, I wrote out every procedure, screenshotted everything step by step that someone walking off the street could sit down and make the updates. And it just goes back to show you, like, documentation is very, very important. And it wasn't giving away the store. It was the fact that this is going to, if I ever leave and you bring in somebody new without an overlap, they're going to have to understand the system. So that was one other way of, like, ensuring that things would not break.
Yes. So I would say that, to gain something, you have to let go of something, because you just have X amount of energy and you just have to be wise about that. Yeah, life teaches you a lot of things about the world, about yourself.
But speaking of that, you have extensive experience building working with product teams and across various industries. But how have you seen the cultural differences impact team dynamics and project outcomes? Because you might have people all over the world, or even in your own office, that are just from different backgrounds, came to this position of this company through different means, and they all have to work together for one common goal.
Yes. That's actually a hard thing to do. I have to say it, even though it comes easy and naturally to me. So back, 20, 15, 20 years ago, businesses started to look into global talent as a cost cutting measure, or, cost effectiveness, and to actually maintain, older versions of their system while they go off and do, the new version of the system, or a new, market or whatnot, right? But that has drastically changed. Now businesses are looking at global teams for sheer talent because there is not enough in the place that they are, or even if there is, it's highly competitive, and it's extremely hard. So earlier, overseas teams, I used to have teams in South Asia and the rest of the world. But now, the rest of the world is, producing the same type of talent and in the scale that is needed to power businesses and advance their innovation. So I would say that it's not an option to not have a global team now, and it's not just for the talent, it's just not for the cost, but it is also for business operations. You want to have 24/7 business operations and, work-life balance, mental health. These are all, front and center in many ways. So having a global team and educating them and making them, part of your team, I can only see benefits. And to your question of, how do you adapt and the dynamics? I would say that, having a mindset of one team really helps. And when I say mindset of one team, all I mean is, treat the overseas team as you would treat your own, because they're motivated by the same set of things, work-life balance, quality of, work that comes their way, opportunities to grow, respect. And so basic, employee engagement things. I think if you do these, I have seen tremendous amount of success. Where it has not worked is if you come with a mindset of, hey, I am paying you, you do what I say, they just do the bare minimum and you get what you ask for. And, it's not a productive, long-term engagement at that point.
I mean, that mindset is such a 20th century mindset now. I mean, every single day, the world is becoming more egalitarian. I mean, the consumption of videos and content and the standards of software engineering education, and
Yes.
the fact that, like, to your point, 85% of the world's developers live outside of the US. So why are you ignoring that massive talent pool? And, if you want to find hyper specialists, there's an 85% chance that they reside, not in the US. And so do you want to access that talent? Do you want to access the specialization? Do you want speed to being able to ramp up a team with all sorts of different skill sets, whether it's back office or front office or development or what have you? I mean, it's just every single day, the opportunity to access and galvanize a global talent team is available. And to your point, Hema, to lean into this egalitarian mindset of let's no borders, everyone's equal, everyone brings a talent, everyone is accountable, everyone is empowered, everyone is held to standards. If you just apply that and just obviously you can't ignore cultural differences. People grow up and live in different cultures in different countries and different time zones and everything, and so by taking the effort to sort of be inclusive and appreciate people's differences, but at the same time leverage each other's talent and skill. That sounds like a pretty obvious, path.
Yes, it's an obvious path, but there is a lot of apprehension and hesitation if you're doing it for the first time. So as a leader, you just have to find the right people with the right mindset to take a small pilot and show them that it works. And then it just gets, adopted, right?
Now you're talking about working, for an end user or a client. Or you're talking about constructing a team? Because I guess my question to you is you might think that, but how do you instill those obviously select people with the right mindset, but then instill that culture within the global workforce?
What has worked for me, I've tried a few things, but what has worked for me is always identify a leader with the right mindset and who can demonstrate the ability to, work across the border and, with all the things that I mentioned, respect, and empathy and high level of emotional intelligence. Find that leader. And then, if it's an organization that is new to not having worked with a global team at all, this approach has worked. Do it with a small team, show the results, show the metrics, show the quality of work, show the speed with which work is delivered. And then, other teams, offer it to the other teams. Is this something that you would be interested in? And, managers will never say no of, delivering high quality work at, faster, right? So then slowly partner them with, the team that piloted, learnings within the organization and, allow shadowing opportunities and then, methodically make this as a norm for the entire organization. So that has worked for me.
Okay. And so treading not lightly, but treading boldly into this loaded term of DEI. What does DEI mean to you? And maybe it's, let's not use DEI because it's too loaded. And but anyway, what does it mean to you? And how do you, talk a little bit more about how you champion these values within your teams?
Yes. DEI, in short, what it means for me is it's diversity of thought. People, when you hear DEI, they often jump into this mode of gender, identity and, very polarized
so true.
Things. For me, it's very basic diversity of thought. And that diversity of thought does not come from, gender, identity, and all those things. It comes from experiences. And it so happens that, you gain some of these experience, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, because of, a certain type, your identity or gender, or for, and things like that. So to make it simple, I just say diversity of thought, whether that comes the same type of, thought process that a woman in engineering brings. A man can also bring that same thought. It's just that that person has a certain, characteristic trait, right?
Absolutely.
Or experiences. Maybe they came from a war-ridden place. Maybe they had a lot of responsibility growing up, taking care of family and things like that. So I would say it's just, diversity of thought. I can tell you a story where, so we had this role for a staff engineer, and it was in the systems engineering infrastructure space. Majority of those staff engineers are male and came highly recommended. So I fast tracked because, recommendation, staff engineer, bull market, let's fast track this person, right? So, speaking about diversity is also how you operate every day. So I always have an interview panel with diverse people. So I was one of them as a head of engineering, a woman. And then I had a woman engineering manager, and I had a male engineering manager, and I had a male engineer to interview. So, we all interview and put feedback, and the data doesn't lie. Every woman said no, and every man said yes. So I said, okay, let's gather and talk about it. And then we decided, let's have a female engineer interview, and I will also interview again and then see, not interview, I'll talk to this person and see, if it would be a cultural fit or not. So the second round happened, and we came together again, and I jumped on the call and I said, I think this person might have had a bad day, was, very presentable this time, and all of that, which is great. And the women engineer said, I would not want to work with this person at all. And then the other, one of the panel members said, oh, so now you are a person of authority, so this person behaves differently, right? So to me, diversity of thought and inclusivity was right there. One, there was an environment where people felt, included in the process. They had a say in, who we bring, and they were comfortable enough to voice their opinion to me, who's head of engineering. And second, for me, even though I went in with a mindset of, okay, I'm a woman, let's see how this person, treats me and behaves, but I forgot that I was a person of authority in that situation. I had completely forgotten about that. So no matter, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not about the gender and identity. It's the diversity of thought, your experiences, how you show up, and how other people perceive you, and things like that. So it's a very complex subject, but end of the day, I think, if you have a place where it is diverse, equitable, inclusive, there are just tremendous benefits. And that translates to, Andy, your whole business of, global talent. I remember you interviewing me when I reached out to you. I need XYZ teams. You had like 20 questions, and you asked me a lot of questions that were not technical. You asked about the dynamics, the team composition, and I was so impressed with that thoroughness.
Hey, we've said doubled or tripled down on that whole role, because we've seen that not only theoretically, the diversity of thought delivers better outcomes, but in order to achieve those outcomes, you need to put in framework and structure and processes and values and culture, and you need to invest in that. And unfortunately, a lot of companies don't want to invest in that. They just want a streamlined outcome, which maybe might be easier achieved if everyone looked, felt, and brought the same perspective together, and there's very little friction. But the quality and the diversity of input and the variety of input will not be registered in the outcome, unfortunately. So I
mean, the outcomes are also very obvious in this situation. I would say that for a small company to recruit and fill 100% of the hiring plan and retaining talent at 85% rate in a bull market, that's statistics, right?
Yeah.
So environment definitely matters.
Yeah, absolutely. We have this client. They've been a client for 9 years now, I think. Nextrol, and they did things the right way. Patrick Mee, which I think was on a prior podcast. I believe, he was on a prior podcast. I mean, he really laid down the structure, the values, the hiring, the vetting process to make sure that each and every team member, and half of their team was distributed throughout Latin America, and the other half of the team, and we're talking 100 people in Latin America, 100 people in North America, that everyone really leaned into the collective values, and everyone was empowered, everyone was accountable, everyone was measured, and they selected people for that, and they all bought into it, and they reinforced it through, everything was the same. It's like full-time people, contractors, ignore the names, ignore the labels, everyone is here to achieve a singular goal. And to work together as a singular team. And it's been super impressive. I mean, if only, but you do need buy-in. If you approach things from a transactional perspective, you get transactional type results.
What I have also learned and experienced is, if it's, like I said, people on the global talent pool are also motivated by the same things, right? They spend a significant amount of their time at work, and they want to work with people who are, inclusive and, fun to work with. So I know personally that within those global organizations, the top talent have preferences of which company that they would work with or work for. So indirectly, having that one team, environment mindset, you're attracting the top talent, even amongst the global talent pool. So, I don't see, how businesses can succeed without tapping into global talent and providing them the right environment to succeed.
I love the one team concept, because it's one of those things where no matter who you work with and no matter, you're all working for the same goal. Andy and I had a conversation the other day, and we were talking about we all have the same goal. I mean, we don't need, I don't need to fly a flag over here and say, this is my work. We all work for the same goal at the end. I swam in college, and I put it to one of those things where it's a relay. Doesn't matter who begins and who ends. We're all trying to work together to make this all work. Right. And, Andy played hockey, team sport. Does it matter if he's the one that puts the puck in the back of the net? Maybe the stats at the end of the day. But if the team won, no one's going to remember who won game 5 in the middle of a X amount of game season because of one goal. They remember at the end when you raise the trophy over your head. So you do this together. So what common pitfalls do organizations face when they can't be one team? Whether it's something when they're just working with their team in the office, whether it's an onshore team they brought in, one that's nearshore, or one that's totally offshore, and how can they avoid those pitfalls? And what suggestions can you give if someone just can't understand the concept of being one team?
I alluded to some pitfalls that, not treating or providing an environment where all the teams onshore, offshore can operate as one team. The primary thing there is basically making sure that you are building a balanced team. One that is aligned to common goals, one that is respectful of each other's culture and differences. And so these are the common things that you align the team on. Communication is key. So one of the things that this is a pitfall because generally, onshore team does the architecture and design and says, okay, we've done with the architecture and design now, onshore team go and implement it, right? So that hasn't worked very well because the person who's implementing also needs to know the requirements, the business use cases and, who are the stakeholders and the timelines and legacy information. So sharing all of the information is very key. Don't hold information that delays the project, that, makes you redo so many things. There's a lot of friction during integration times and things like that. So I would say, you should share all the information. The next one that I wanted to say is the attitude, right? That I know better. That has backfired time and again. And if you have a relationship where, I know better, you do what I say, then that also goes, back and forth. And it's very disengaging for the team. What has worked, and this has worked time and again, is, define clear ownership. Just like Andy pointed out, trust and give them responsibilities, allow them to grow. It's important, lot of times the onshore team, when they make mistakes, it's not amplified, but an offshore team makes a mistake, it's just blown out of proportion. So I would I would say that, tolerance and, empathy and allowing them to grow and grow with you is important, right? This goes back to, respecting their space and time, work-life balance incentives. Just because you don't want to take late night meetings doesn't mean that you want them to stay till 2 a.m. Because of your time zones. This is where documentation and, writing everything down so you are enabling them during their daytime helps. And then providing, flexibility. You do so much today for your own people on providing flexibility. I think if you apply the same thing to the offshore team, that also goes a long way. So just doing these, small things gives you big benefits. When there is a time of crisis, when there is, issues, code red issues, they have always stayed and helped. And that's where, a lot of these one team mindset thing.
I'm going to ask it's an adjacent question, but something, I have a burning question, and that is, how sensitive and how do you train people to be the right amount of, I guess, sensitive and understanding? For example, a major deliverable, and you need to have people work an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe 6 hours, I know, outside of their time zones, maybe early, maybe late. You want to be respectful for limits, but at the same time, and you're dealing across cultures and stuff. So what is a good exercise or a model or a rule? How do you implement sort of like, and, Americans maybe have the reputation of just, working too hard, or, maybe you have some French people, and I don't want to degrade French people, but, they have a reputation of like, 5 o'clock, I'm out of here no matter if the house is burning down. So how do you deal with that? I mean, what kind of communication or?
I think, every culture is different. And Asians seem to compromise their personal lives to, do a lot of work because it's a need for them. And I would say that a simple framework of coverage, document the coverage. So I used to have my, program managers establish a coverage document, who's available when. And if you had already done all of the other things that I mentioned, treating them as your own and things like that, they are more than happy to fill that coverage document for you. And they are there, and they have made arrangements on their side to be available. And you can't just expect them to do the same, but you also, your own team, your full-time people also have willingly, put time on the coverage sheet. And this has happened many times because now with that one team mindset, the onshore team and offshore team, not at the leadership level, but at the day-to-day working, they have established a human relationship. They know their families, they know their holidays, they know, a lot of things. So, for example, I've worked with, many different cultures. Let's say the team in China, in the lunar Chinese New Year, they're off for the whole week. The US team picks up, the night coverage and everything. And in India, they're off for Deepavali, but they cover for us during Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it's a lot of, sharing and caring at this point. And if you have established that, bonding with the team, 8 out of 10 times, you have good coverage. You don't even have to ask.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's interesting. I want to jump into this question, and it's probably going to be the last question because I'm really interested in, Sunlit Live. I want to understand more about, it's about improving senior care journeys. So all of this aggregated experience and maturity, not to say that, we're all of a certain age, right? So how are you leveraging that in this new venture?
That's a great question. It took me many years till now to start my own. I would say that confidence in my ability to build a product of high quality, build a team with the focus of people first organization, and the discipline that enterprise software development in larger companies have taught me, and the agility and ability to pivot, and the energy that the startups have taught me. I feel prepared to build a product, and Andy, having access to people like you, who I am super confident will find me the right team at the right time, are all experiences that I bring to the venture. So I would say
describe
the confidence.
Describe it a little bit more. Describe Sunlit.
Yes, Sunlit is a technology platform that allows family caregivers. AARP has done this research, and there are 38 million family caregivers who are unpaid, and it puts a value of $600 billion on it, who struggle day in and day out. 67% are people, who struggle with caregiving duties. 32% have already left the workforce, as a result. So if my goal is to provide a platform where family caregivers can, streamline their caregiving journeys, share responsibilities with others who can also provide that care for their loved one, so that, there is extra time, extra money for them to lead a life that they desire. So that's what the platform is aiming to do. We just released a beta, and we're looking for invitation only beta users to help us, get to the next level.
So that market is massive. So you said 68 million?
38 million.
38
this is
million.
Like 20, yeah.
I completely, I don't know what the alternatives or the solutions out there are currently, but I can imagine, especially with the demographics, the way they're evolving in the US and frankly other countries, what a need for a platform to help manage this.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, this purpose-driven initiative, we can serve a lot of people like ourselves, because we are, at least for me, the sandwich generation, where, to take care of the children, take care of, elders. So if I can, use all my experience to build a platform that serves people, I would be happy, very, very happy.
And where is Sunlit in the evolution of capitalization and sort of formation? I know you said you were running a beta test. So right now we've just completed. I mean, it's incorporated, and we just completed the prototype, and we are doing some beta testing and also determining market fit and other avenues of use for this product. In terms of capital, I will soon be seeking some funding for the venture once I demonstrate that there is a big need for this product. Now, before Jared, Jared may be saying this, but if we forget, I don't want us to forget, like how do people and who might you be amenable to getting in touch with you, and how could they get in touch with you?
My LinkedIn profile, Hema Ramaswamy Austin or technology, would show up. But you can also get in touch with me at hema@sunlitlive.com, or our website will soon be up, sunlit.live. And you can also say contact and I will get that information.
Fantastic. Jarrett?
Hema, thank you so much for the enlightening discussion. Your insights into aligning multinational teams and transforming cultural differences into advantages are invaluable. We learned so much today, and we know our listeners have too. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting platform. We appreciate your support. Join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless potential of software in transforming businesses and industries.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thanks, Hema.